Hello, Facebook, friends, and family. Okay, I'm checking our connection.
Looks like you're on. I've got the notifications.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you, Tanya. Welcome, Facebook friends and family, to our live Bible topics, questions, and answers. Our topic is we're continuing on the topic of abuse. And today we'll be discussing services for the victim and as well as the abuser. Our guest speaker for today is Bridget Cleghorn from Safe Place. Our panel members are Yvette Steele, Tanya Carter, Ricky Long, and Shapronka Long, myself. Also, Ricky and I are your hosts. Our call line, you can call in to chat with us while we're live at 256 669 9565. So we'll open up for our discussion on the topic of abuse, the services that are offered. And here we have Bridget Cleghorn.
Hi guys.
Hey,
Hey.
How are
Hey,
y'all?
awesome,
How are y'all tonight?
awesome.
we're
All
doing
right.
good.
Good. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, do you want me just to dive right in?
Uh, sure, you can go ahead and start. Well, we will our continuation on abuse. Last week we were discussing it by basically we were talking about healing from maybe a biblical standpoint, Bible
Mhm,
scriptures.
mhm,
Sometimes, we have to put faith without works is dead. So
mhm,
there has to be some works with the faith as well as the scriptures. Uh, we have to do something to in order
mhm,
to get better, or sometimes, for the situation to be resolved.
mhm,
So therefore, that's why I contacted you all for
mhm,
so we can see what services are available for people. And some people maybe don't know about the services that are available. Or
right.
sometimes people stay in situations because they feel stuck, they financially
Mhm,
can't afford to
mhm,
leave, or
Don't have somewhere to go.
yes,
mhm,
exactly.
mhm. Yeah, that's
And
so true.
yes. So, therefore, we wanted to get some information on the services that are available for the victim as well as services we found out are available for the perpetrator
Mhm,
as well.
right. Yeah. Thankfully, safe
So,
places. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh,
Apologize.
no, I'm done. Yeah,
I'm all
go
about
ahead.
talking, so y'all forgive me. Yeah, you
That's
if I go too long or I talk too much, just say, Bridget, I'm gonna need you to cut it off here. So, and certainly as I'm talking, if I say anything, please, if you have questions, just ask. Just stop me and say, let me ask something. So because so this can kind of be a dialogue more so than just me presenting
yes,
information to you. Yeah, so there's a lot of different types of abuse that we see certainly physical abuse probably being the most common that people can relate to and understand. Certainly there are other forms of it, emotional, psychological, financial, are some of the other forms of abuse that we see, particularly at Safe Place when we're doing this work. Just to kind of tell you who I am and kind of how I came to this work and kind of buy in so that I'm not just some random person y'all never seen before telling you this stuff. So I
Yes.
am a childhood survivor of domestic violence. My father was very abusive to my mom and myself. And so I grew up in that situation. And then I ended up marrying someone who was very emotionally abusive. He never hit me. So I knew that from coming from a very violent childhood, that the first time, and I think I shared this with you guys when we were talking earlier this week, the first time his fist went through the wall, I emotionally just checked out of that relationship and knew that I was not going to be safe. So
Yeah.
nobody ever told me growing up, because in the church we just didn't really talk about it, that what was going on, right? What was going on was abuse, or that it had a name, or that it was not legal, and so I grew up not realizing that it had a name. And through, the Lord, just, sometimes we come right back around to where, to our purpose, right? So life happens, and then he kind of brings us back around to purpose. And so in 2012, after my father had passed away in 2009, we moved back to this area in Franklin County. And I met someone, I think you met her too, Shapronica, is Ginger Stone. And
Yes.
Ginger kind of through some family members, we ended up being, and the Lord, I mean, that's just my opinion, he just crossed our paths. And through talking with her and coming to understand, the organization that she worked for, Safe Place, I found out that domestic violence, what I had been going through, what I had experienced as a child, had a name. And for the first time, chains were literally broken off of me, because then I didn't realize that this shame that I had carried for all of these years did not belong to me, and it had a name, and that it allowed me to get free, to receive forgiveness and to give forgiveness, most of all, because that for me, that is how I walked through my healing. That comes for different people. That comes in different ways for different people. And so, I can only talk about how mine came. So that's who I am, and that's how I came to this work. Thankfully, they decided to give me a job, and they taught me how to, be an advocate. And so what my role at Safe Place is I'm the victim advocacy coordinator. I started almost 6 years ago as the Franklin County advocate. And as an advocate, that is one of the services that we provide to victims of domestic violence, is we will go to court with them. So we will help them understand what the criminal justice process looks like if they choose to maybe get a protection order from abuse, or if they choose to be a witness in a criminal case where violence might have been perpetrated against them. So that is what my role is in Safe Place. And now I have become the advocacy supervisor. So we serve 6 counties, and I'm actually the supervisor of our court advocacy program.
Okay.
So that's kind of who I am and what I do and why I do what I do, and how it has affected, how domestic violence has affected me. So any questions so far? Okay.
So far, no.
We're good?
No
Okay.
questions
All right.
so far. We're good.
So, I know that y'all had this conversation last week, and one of the things that when we talk and people hear the word abuse, like I said earlier, a lot of times I think a lot of people just think of physical abuse,
Yeah.
and this physical violence or sexual violence that happens. And what we know to be true is that while that is like, the extreme part of domestic violence or abuse, there are lots of little things that happen before that, typically speaking, before that big explosion of physical violence actually occurs. So at the core of domestic violence, and I know you have the power and control wheel, so I don't want to keep it up on the screen.
Okay.
But one of the I have it here, and then we can show it
Okay.
too as I go through. So one of the things that when we talk about the power and control wheel, so domestic violence is just that. It is about one person's belief in a particularly intimate partner violence. Okay, because that's what we typically deal with, and that's what we're talking about today. A group of ladies got together in Duluth, Minnesota, and they were talking about these experiences that they had had with their intimate partners, with their husbands particularly. And they came to realize that there were some common things happening between them before these physical explosions or sexual assaults were happening. So when we think about a wheel, so they came up with all these tactics that abusers use to maintain this power and control that they believe they have the right to have in an intimate relationship. So when you think about, a relationship, when you think about a mom and a dad, a mom and a child, or a father, or parents, and so their relationships are not balanced, right? Because when we are in a parental role, there's an element of control that we have to have, and it's appropriate and okay to have so that we maintain order in our home and we teach our children, right?
Right.
So, but what happens when you're in an unequal relationship is that person in the relationships believes that he is, and I say he, I know we talked about this earlier. There are all certainly times where the man is the victim, and where he is the one being abused. But statistics tell us that about 95% of the time, intimate partner violence is perpetrated by the male partner against his female partner. Okay. So when I say that, I only say it because that's what statistics tell us. So you're in an unequal relationship, and he believes that he has the right to have control in this relationship, and that control gives him power. And so when you think about a wheel on a car, you think about the center of that wheel, and that's an axis, right? That's what makes the car go round. And so
Yes.
the power and control is at the center of what makes violence, particularly domestic violence, intimate partner violence. It is what makes violence it happen.
Okay.
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 And so when a person's power is taken away from him, then that's where these tactics come in to play. Everybody with me so far?
Mhm.
Am
Yes.
I okay? So that's where the power and control wheel, because how does an abuser maintain control? How does he maintain his control over his victim? And so there's a lot of different ways that he can do that. And that's what the power and control wheel is. I think that if you want to show that, you will y'all be able to see me, or
Sure.
you'll be able to hear me, right?
Well,
Mhm.
yes, we'll be able to hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody with me so far? Y'all are quiet. Y'all are.
Yes. Yes.
We're listening.
Good. You
Okay.
good? You
Yes.
good, Tanya? Am I doing
Yes.
okay? Cassandra, give me a thumbs up. We're good? Okay. So, okay. Well, now, how cool is this? So if you think about the wheel, the center of the wheel is where that power and control is, right?
Yeah,
That is
I'm good.
okay, good deal, good deal. That is
Okay.
where
Can y'all see? Okay, let me move
yeah.
it up a little bit there. Okay.
Um that the center of the wheel is where is the nucleus of violence. And so how an abuser maintains that power and control is through the use of tactics, minimizing, denying, and blaming. Okay, so that might sound like, well, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't have to do that. Minimizing his own behavior and blaming her for it. Well, if you would have had my supper ready on time, I wouldn't have had to have taken away, access to the bank, or I wouldn't have had to slap you because you didn't have. So really and truly making light. I think that's what it says. Making light of the abuse. In his abuse and blaming it on her. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Sometimes even saying that it didn't happen, making her feel like she's crazy, like things that, just making it minimizing what has happened
Yes.
in his own behavior, saying
Yes.
she was the cause of it.
Yes.
One of the other ones is, emotional abuse, putting her down, making her to feel bad about herself, calling her names. Again, like I said earlier, making her, and a lot of these go hand in hand together. He may
Yeah.
minimize his behavior and then call her a name or tell her she's crazy and emotionally abuse her at the same time. All of these things can happen because what's going on is he has felt a loss of power. And so because he has felt a loss of power, maybe she hasn't done what she was supposed to do. He initiates these tactics to bring her back into submission, back into a place where he still has the power in that relationship. A lot of times I see clients who come in, through the coercion, threats, intimidation. One of the biggest ones that I see in this work is isolation, because he isolates her. And particularly we see that a lot in the church, where she will go and they will go together to maybe a church, and that she's found some support. She's found some people that will listen to her and will be her friend. Well, that's threatening to a person who wants to have control in a relationship and believes that they have the right to have the power in that relationship. And so he may tell her, well, I don't think they like me there. I think we need to find another place to go. Her family may be there. Well, your family don't like me. And so let's go here and let's have our own church. This may be a church that she even grew up in a lot of times. In the South, I think, for me, I grew up in the church my whole life. And so isolating me from the people that I had grown up with and knew in that church, it made it very difficult for me to feel connected because I was completely isolated. And then, a lot of times we'll see it where he may say, well, let's go find our own church. And so he takes her to another church, and now she's lost that connection with her church family that she had. And she doesn't feel like she can go back to them because she's left there and went, and now he's not even going to church at all.
Right.
But that's the thing, is because that I will isolate her, and now she has no support system at all. All right. Another one is male privilege. I think we see that a lot in the South because we do live in the Bible Belt. And, we hear that a lot of times a client will come in and tell me how he has used the Bible and word and scripture to, and I'm not speaking ill of the church. Y'all don't take,
Oh,
but
no.
it's,
Oh, no,
it's
by no
to bring
means.
her, to bring her into submission, right? To bring her into submission. And that's required And so that's a lot of the ways that I particularly have seen. The most common way I've seen male privilege work. It certainly can go in other ways. He's the head of the house, and he's going to manage all of the finances. He's going to manage everything to do with the house. He tells her when she can go, when she can come, those kinds of things. Economics certainly plays a role into it. Not allowing her to have access, not allowing her to work, maybe, keeping her in some sort of creating a barrier for her, right? And so coercion, threats, a lot of the biggest thing I see in coercion is suicide. He will oftentimes threaten to kill himself, because what happens if he threatens to kill himself? Then he's gone, and she will have no income. She will have no support. And so that will bring her back into submission, so that she will do whatever it is that, she's supposed to be doing for him to feel like he has control in the relationship.
Yes.
Another one is also using children. That was a big thing that abusers will do is, you're a bad mom, I'm going to call the HR on you. Sometimes we find that there's illegal activity going on. Maybe she's coping with some of her stress in a way that she may have reached. She may be taking pills that don't belong to her. While that's not okay, he'll use that to threaten her, make her even do illegal things as well. But threaten to tell DHR on her, those kinds of things, through intimidating her. Another one is, I think, pet abuse. We see that a lot. I had a lady one time who her animals were like her children.
Okay.
And matter of fact, I was in our peace program, which I'll tell you a little bit when we talk about services. And one of our participants in our program, his wife was someone who I was advocating for in court. And she called me on the phone one day, and she was just hysterical. And she was absolutely, I could hear him in the background yelling and cussing, and he was threatening her animals. And she was in a place where she was ready to just, she didn't know what she was going to do. She was ready. She was just going to stay because she did not want to lose her animals. And the only reason why we were able to actually get her out of there is because we were able to find a safe place for her animals to go.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
wow.
So that's a big deal to a lot of our clients because they don't have human contact, and their animals are support to them and emotional support. So we see that a lot too. But what happens when these tactics don't work anymore? What happens when she decides, you know what, I'm still going to go to church and I'm going to have a support group? What happens when I tell you that I'm still leaving, you can kill my animals, but I'm not going to stay in this, or I'm not going to do this anymore? That big, thick line you see about the physical and the sexual violence, it's when that happens when he feels the loss of control. When these tactics are not working, that's when the big explosion happens. That's when the physical violence or the sexual violence happens. And so it may start off really small at the beginning. It may be that the tactics work, a long time before physical violence happens. And sometimes the physical violence happens, it may start out with just a pinch, under her arm so nobody can see it. It may escalate then to, a slap in the face with an open hand, and then escalate to a full-on punch. And eventually, she's killed or her children are killed.
Yes.
And without being able to, without getting out of that relationship, without being free of that violence. So,
Yes.
in a nutshell, that's kind of what domestic violence looks like. That's how power and control is maintained by a perpetrator, someone who believes that they have the right. It's different than just an anger problem. Somebody who is abusive to his spouse or her spouse believes that they have the right to control this other person. And like I said, earlier, it's you have an unequal relationship, like you are subordinate to him. A lot of my clients come in and tell me that they feel like he treats them like they're his child,
Yes.
or something like that. So that's kind of how it works. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on to some of the services we offer at Safe Place? I don't.
Is it common for
You
the
can take the wheel down.
perpetrator?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I can
Yeah, I
take
mean,
the
you
wheel
can.
down.
Yeah, you can take the
Okay.
wheel down, unless. Yeah, if
Okay.
anybody would like a copy of that, certainly I'm happy to email that out. There we go.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You were saying, is it common?
Is it common for the perpetrator to realize what he's doing?
How do you mean realize?
Well, do they always know that they have these characteristics?
So, I don't know that they always know that this is not okay. I think that I can't help but believe that they have to know it's not okay to hurt somebody, I mean,
to hurt someone, but
right.
some of the.
But no, I don't think most of the times that when, this is the way they have been raised, boys see this behavior. Boys grow up learning that this is how we treat mom, or this is how we treat our wives, because, she's the woman and she's going to be submitted to me. And so I think that a lot of times they don't really realize that it's abuse, that it's abuse.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
because they have a pattern of that behavior.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely.
Because they have a pattern of that behavior that becomes a norm to them.
Yeah, it does, and it becomes a norm to her too, because that's
to her
what
too.
Because that's what she's right. So, we talk about Maslow a lot in one of our classes, and Maslow's theory says that we need food, shelter, safety, security, and then, it's like a triangle, and the bottom is food and shelter. Then we need, once we have that, we have safety and security, and then love and belonging. And then you have, self-awareness and things like that, self-esteem and self-awareness. So what a girl learns when she's growing up and she is witnessing abuse in her family is that she has to sacrifice everything to feel that love. He is learning that you demand it. You will do this. You will do that. And that is the only way you're going to get my love. And so, she is willing to sacrifice everything, her own safety, sometimes even access to food or shelter, to just feel this love. I mean, oftentimes, she'll take the blame for things, or, he may be involved in illegal. I've seen it. He's involved in illegal activity, but she takes the blame.
For what happens. Yeah.
I see it all the time in court, where, it does happen. Absolutely. It happens.
Okay.
So
you can. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
talking about services and things that are available for people who are in safe place, particularly, we are an organization and we serve that serves victims of domestic violence and their children. Um,
Okay.
so we serve particularly 6 counties in Alabama. We serve Marion and Winston County. We serve
Hmm.
Franklin County. We also serve
Okay.
Lawrence County, Colbert, and Lauderdale County. So
Okay.
those are the 6 counties that we particularly serve. There are domestic violence shelters throughout Alabama, and every county in Alabama is served by a domestic violence shelter.
Mhm.
Now,
Okay.
all of their services are different. We don't all offer all of the same services. Um, but by and large, I would say that we are all what we call voluntary services. So someone who comes to us, they voluntarily come to us. That they don't have to do anything to receive our services. They don't have to call the police. They don't have to have a police report. Um, they don't have to, do anything particularly to qualify for our services,
Okay.
except be a victim of domestic violence. And so,
Violence.
Okay.
right, we will assess them. And when I say we, generally that's an advocate that will get that. Sometimes they call our helpline, and there's an assessment process that we go through, questions we ask, and a conversation is had, and we determine whether they are a victim or whether they are the perpetrator.
Mm.
Um, and so that's
Right.
really all that's required to receive our services. Okay. Once
Okay.
we've identified someone as a victim of domestic violence, we have 2 shelters that serve all 6 counties. We have a rural county shelter, and then we have one that's more in our urban area. And our urban area is identified more as Colbert and Lauderdale counties. So those counties, there are 2 shelters there. We do
Okay.
have um, we have attorneys on our staff. We have not always had that. We are very blessed that we have
Okay.
a legal assistant, and we
Oh
have
wow.
two. We
That's
have
good.
two attorneys who are, board certified. They've taken the bar and all that. They can go to court and practice law. Then they work for Safe Place. They still are bound by all the rules and privacy privileges that comes with having an attorney. So it can make things challenging when they have that client attorney privilege, so we don't always get to know everything that's going on in the case unless our client tells us. So
Yes.
and I mentioned our court advocates earlier. Victim advocates, some of us are call our we've had a few names over the years. Some we've been called victim advocates, we've been called court advocates, but we typically are involved in the criminal justice process with our clients, and we also help identify resources for our clients. We primarily are, because what we know is when a victim is in a situation and she has no way out, there are resources that she needs. There are large barriers that happen when you're in a relationship and he's been the primary breadwinner and you don't have an education, or you don't have a job skill, or you don't have a way. You have small children, so how can you go to work because you don't have childcare? And that
Right.
Yes.
cycle, and you may not have support. You may not have a support system. So we help create that support system. We are on the front lines. We are the boots in the field, so to speak. And we're doing that initial we're the ones who are managing the crisis when our clients come in and they're in crisis.
Yes.
Unless it's in shelter, we work with our outreach clients who are in the counties. We have advocates who are in our shelter that work with them in shelter, but sometimes they have to have court proceedings. They get connected to a court advocate.
Okay.
So,
Those are very good resources.
Mhm.
well, that's not even near all we have. We
Okay.
have counseling. So we
Okay.
have counseling services that are available. We have for both our adults and our children. We have 2 adult counselors and 2 child counselors. I mentioned shelter. We have 2 shelters available. I believe we have 42 beds in one of our shelters and 15 in the other. So we're a fairly large facility. We also help our clients with housing. We have several different housing programs. One of our programs, we can help pay rent for up to 18 months so that she's able to, get things in order. Maybe it's go back to school and finish a couple classes so she can get a certification. Maybe she just needs some time so she can, find a job or something like that. So, that is something we have available. We also have more short-term help that's about 6 months or so. We can help clients relocate. We can help
Okay.
them. A lot of times, one of our clients may end up, maybe let's say they end up in Muscle Shoals and they're
Okay.
from Michigan and they need to get back to Michigan. We can help them do that. We can buy
Okay.
bus tickets. I've helped get a client back to Hawaii. She ended
Okay.
up in Alabama. So those are some of the things. A lot of times we find that perpetrators he may leave the house or something like that, but the utilities are in his name. And so he goes and cuts those utilities off. Ooh, I'm hearing myself.
Um,
But the utilities are in his name.
Somebody got,
let's see. Can you mute your microphone, please? Okay.
Okay, there that goes.
yeah.
Okay.
So utility assistance, we can help pay deposits. So if, let's say the utilities were in his name, but she needs to get utilities on in her name, we can help her do that. We
Okay.
can help relocate her. We also have, in some of our counties more than others, we have a large Hispanic population. We have 2 full-time Hispanic liaisons who help our Spanish-speaking clients, who help them navigate the criminal justice system, who help them navigate resources. Oftentimes, you know, we find that our Hispanic clients, their immigration status becomes a point of abuse for them. Their abusers will use their immigration status to
Okay.
keep them in control of that situation. And so oftentimes some of our Hispanic liaisons help those individuals get in contact with the people who can help them secure their immigration status, that kind of thing. We just help point them in that right direction. We have support
Yes.
groups. That is probably our most valuable resource, is our support
Okay.
groups, because community, it's about community. And so a lot of times many of our victims find community through a support group. And we have those in all of our service areas, available in all of our service areas. I mentioned our counseling for kids. Transportation is a big barrier for many of our clients, getting back and forth to work. Maybe they don't have a car. So we can help with NACOG passes. Those are, public transportation. We help with taxis, get a taxi for our clients. We have prescription assistance, and we also have some childcare assistance. So let's say a client doesn't qualify for CMA, child care management assistance, because for some reason we have assistance that we can help her with for a short time, not nearly as long, because we don't have those kind of funds as maybe a child care management association, but we can at least get her started. Our agency, we can get her started. I feel like I ran through those. So those are pretty much all of this a summation of the services that we offer.
What about
Yeah.
job placement or something like that? Do you help her get a job?
So when let's say someone, we do have one of our Hispanic advocates. She keeps up with, like, if we see somebody's hiring, or we see that we can't kind of keep a list of those things. We send each other text messages and things like that. If this is so-and-so's hiring, we're not a jobs program. Many of our clients get involved in the jobs program through Department of Human Resources, and they do place people. We help them connect to, the unemployment office and that kind of thing. We help them get transportation there. We also have several of us are involved in helping people who want to go back to school, get back to school,
Okay.
whether that's to
Okay.
get their GED or whether that's to go to college. When I
Okay.
first started back at Safe Place, I had not finished my college education. And I got involved with, there's an organization called the Sunshine Lady. And that sprung another organization called WISP, Women's Independent Scholarship Program. And it is a scholarship program for victims of domestic violence who have been away from their perpetrator for at least 1 year. And they will help. Many of my clients had went to school like myself, and because of the violence, they were never able to finish that. And so
Okay.
the WISP program, so they lose their financial aid. I lost my financial aid. I couldn't use my financial aid because my completion rate was not well enough. So WISP was able to step in and help me cover some tuition costs until I could get I had an appeal. I did an appeal. So sometimes we can help our clients do an appeal, and sometimes that doesn't work, and WISP pays the tuition for that client to go back to school until they get things in order. And so
Yes.
I was able to utilize that program. I was a recipient of that scholarship for a couple of years, and I was able to finish my degree and graduate from college. I've had several clients who have graduated. I have one, matter of fact, that's about to graduate from college. And not that
Okay.
that's what you have to do, but it certainly does remove some barriers when you are blessed when you have a trade, or you have an education to
Yes.
help you with finding work.
Yes. Yes. That's very good information.
Mhm.
Very,
So-
very good.
Yep.
So I have a question.
Okay.
So is power and control, is that the only root cause of domestic violence?
Oh, that's a really good it is. It's the root cause. It's the belief system. It's a person's belief system that they have the right to have this power over another person. There's probably a lot of other things that one of the things that is not the cause is alcohol or drugs or just anger. Those things, mental illness doesn't cause domestic violence. It really is a person's belief. Now, those things can exacerbate the violence, and it can unveil. My dad was an alcoholic, and unless he was drinking, he was typically, it took a lot to get him to be physically violent. He still was controlling with my mom. He still controlled a lot of things, financial things, those types. He used a lot of isolation, some things like that. But when he drank, that's when he really got violent. My dad really, his violence came out when he drank. The drinking wasn't the cause of it because it was always there. He was just able to keep it suppressed until that alcohol allowed the inhibitions to go away, and he didn't suppress it then. Does that answer your question, Cassandra?
Yes. But I have a part two to that. Do you ever look at it in a religious aspect?
Girl, yes, I love Jesus.
Amen. We all love Jesus.
I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, absolutely. So, safe place, since you open the door, we'll go there, because it's not something that, unless a client, asks, it's not something that we just beat her down with. Does that make sense? Because we want everybody to feel comfortable, and some people are comfortable talking about their faith and their belief, and some people have a strong faith and a strong belief in religion, or for me, it's a spiritual relationship. But absolutely, and so these things are present, even in the church, they're present. And it's still, the root cause is still a person's belief, a person's control. But I'm brought, I think we talked about this, earlier when I was talking to y'all, Miss Long. One of the things that the Christ called husbands to love their wives as he loved the church, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
my experience is that Christ did not go beating on his church. He
No,
didn't
that's
isolate
right.
her. He has not, he's not blamed her for anything.
Right.
He doesn't do those things. And so I tell my clients a lot is that, he didn't call us to that. Now, do I believe that? I'll give you an example. My grandfather, I didn't know him to be this way. My mom has shared this with me, and I don't think that she would mind me sharing this part of her story. He was abusive to my grandmother, and then he came to know the Lord, and he absolutely came to know healing and came to be healed from all of the wounds that caused him. And the Lord healed that belief system that he was in control of this relationship. Now, he and my grandmother still struggled over the years with that, but he was no longer physically abusive to her.
Okay.
So I don't know how deep you want me to go, Cassandra, but yeah, we do look at it from some of us, more than others, look at it from a spiritual relationship, or if our client wants us, we all kind of have at Safe Place different ways of working with clients, and some of us work in different ways with different clients. And one of the things that I particularly am, I guess, like to work with my clients who would like to find their healing through their faith. That's how I found mine, and so I'm comfortable with that.
Yes. Yes.
I hope that answered her question. I don't know what you eating, Tanya, but I'm gonna need some of that.
Oh. Okay, we have
I'm eating Pringles, but can I say something?
Uh-huh.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I think it's
Okay.
very good, because I'm glad that you're talking about the church, because one of the biggest misconceptions is that the church has it all together.
Oh,
no,
that's
and-
right.
And it's just real. It's just real. We are people before we
Yes,
are the real church.
exactly.
We got flesh on our skin. We got flesh
What
on
you
our
say, that's
bones.
right. We
flesh.
operate in this flesh. So I think the things that you're tapping on is very good, because we can have and to hear you say that people were saved but they still were mean, it's a reality.
Mhm.
And sometimes
Yes.
we don't want being in the church, we are so spiritual that we don't deal in reality that there are people who
Amen.
just simply operate in their flesh. You know, they
That's right.
do. You know, even though they may be saved, they may quote scriptures, they may know from Genesis to Revelations, they still don't always get it right. And I think one of the things that by you saying that and addressing that, I think is so important that we understand that. And that's why in cases like you, I'm glad that there are counselors like you who are saved but know better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're able to relate, because sometimes, you know, we have this thing in our mind that, oh, because we're in the church, it's just going to be a perfect world. It doesn't happen like that.
No.
So many
And that's
cases
so true. You know, Tanya, I shared with them earlier, you know, when I was going through because I grew up in the church, I grew up in a very, you know, denomination type church, and, you know, it was this way or the highway. And because I didn't choose to stay in a relationship where I was being emotionally assaulted, my family
talk
still
about
embraced him, still, you know, I mean, Lord, I mean, have mercy, you know, and even told me that I could not come back to church, told me that I could not be a member of their church because I had gotten a divorce and was going to get remarried. You know, and so there was no
you just
grace.
bound to hell. You just bound to hell, but
that's right.
He in the church.
Splitting it wide open, you know, splitting it wide open. And so, you know, it wasn't until I went to the Word myself.
Come
and
on
was
now.
like, I'm gonna need y'all to back up because y'all ain't right.
Right, y'all ain't right.
Y'all ain't right. And so I was able to find grace, and I was able to find mercy, and I was able to find, you know, freedom, and I was able to find a path to wellness and wholeness and completeness that I had never experienced. I'd been taught, you know, have a relationship my whole life, but I had never fully understood what that meant because I was bound by so many rules and so many, you know, regulations that I never really understood what a relationship with my Heavenly Father was until I got free. I got free of those chains. And I experienced His real grace, and I experienced His real mercy, and I experienced the fact that I am a human being and I have flesh, and He has made an allowance for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the other services, and I'm going to be really brief. I know we're on time, but I didn't mention, we talked a little bit about the abuser. So one of the things that I absolutely believe, and I may cry when I say this, is that people who perpetrate violence against their intimate partner, many times we find that they themselves have been hurt and abused. They have been, as a child or in, you know, some other way, they have experienced abuse. And so there has to be healing for that person too. You know, I mentioned my grandfather and how he found his. We have something called the Peace Program. Peace is a program for people who have, for males who have been who have perpetrated violence against their intimate partner. Typically, they come to us two ways. That's either through the court system or that's through the Department of Human Resources. Maybe they have become involved in that situation. We also have a program called Harmony, and Harmony is available to victims of domestic violence who have perpetrated violence. So sometimes we may be a victim and we may have taken a lot of abuse, and we may have enough, and we may act out in a way of protection, right? We may protect ourselves. I've had clients I had a client one time, and she was being held down and strangled, and she could get her hand on a baseball bat, and she was able on the ground to reach and get that baseball bat and she was able to hit him over the head with it to get him off of her. She was arrested as well as him because she hit her, or she hit him. And, you know, he was arrested too. But because of that, she was enrolled in our Harmony program. Sometimes moms who are in violent relationships, they come to us by DHR. Maybe DHR wants them to receive some information and on domestic violence and some tools, to have some tools on how to be free of that relationship, be in a either sometimes they don't want to leave, and so that he may go to Peace and she may go to Harmony, and DHR will let them remain together if they both complete these classes. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So but Harmony is specifically for victims. Women who have perpetrated violence against their intimate partner, we don't necessarily have a class for that. But by and large, we find that most all of our females who come to us in some way have been victimized.
Okay.
I have one last question
Yeah. Okay.
before we end, okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is silence a form of abuse?
I think it's a tactic. Absolutely. I think that abusers can use, do you mean by just keeping him being quiet, him being silent toward her?
Vice versa, either or.
Yeah. So I think that a couple of ways. I think that it can be abuse in the fact that if I'm using my silence to maintain control of that person, to maintain power over that person by not giving them information, or maybe we're in a conversation and I'm just quiet and I'm not gonna, and I'm doing that so that I maintain the power in that is abuse. If I, as a victim, if I am maintaining my silence because I don't want to be hurt or I don't want to be harmed in some way, then that is a victimization, and that's not abuse. I might be quiet sometimes because I know if I open my mouth, he's going to hit me. So I may use my silence as a protection, to protect myself. Is that what you're talking about, Cassandra?
Yeah, like not acknowledging when a person is speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a form of abuse?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be a tactic of abuse. I think it can be a tactic that what we were talking about on our control wheel, that's probably some emotional abuse when I'm not acknowledging you, making you feel as though you're not present in the relationship. It could be some psychological stuff like, there's something called gaslighting, and they will make you think you are crazy, and like they don't even see you in the room, and then some people, might think, am I even here? I know that sounds kind of extreme, but it absolutely happens. And so, yeah, it's definitely a tactic that abusers use to maintain control. It can be. I'm not saying that it always is, but it definitely can be. If it's done out of a effort to maintain control, it is abuse.
Yes. Okay. It is 7. Time is up for our broadcast.
Can I give our
Yes.
800 numbers out real quick?
Sure. Please do so.
If someone is seeing this broadcast or would like to reach out, and you're not in Alabama, you need assistance for domestic violence assistance, you're in domestic violence, please call 800-799-7233. That's 800-799-7233. That is national number. If you're in Alabama but not in a safe place service area, you can call 1-800-650 6522. That's 650-6522. And they will find a shelter near you. They will help you find a shelter near you, and an advocate connect you to an advocate. And those are 24 hours, 7 days a week. If you are in the Safe Place service area, Northwest Alabama, you can call 256-767-6210, 256-767-6210, and that's 24/7. And receive an advocate will be on the line with you. They can talk to you. They can help you with whatever is going on. And certainly, if you are in an emergency situation, call 911 before you call us, please.
Yes. Well, we thank you so much, Bridget.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you for sharing the
Thanks for
information on the
having me.
services available and for speaking.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
Thank y'all for
I'd
having
like
me.
to,
Yes.
yes. So I usually like to close out in prayer, but have kind of run out of time. So I hope that, it's okay. That's perfectly fine. I pray that anyone that needs assistance would reach out to us, reach out to the services that are available. So I will try to post those numbers
Okay.
so that they'll be available to anyone that needs assistance.
Sounds
And
good.
we thank you so much.
All right.
And
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Bridget.
yes, and so for our panel, anyone, any last minute words before we close out? Anyone have anything? Okay.
Let's see.
All right. So
See you in 2 weeks.
yes, we will see you all in 2 weeks. I'm going to end our live. Thank you all.